So as Christine said, I'm from Cancer Council Victoria, and I manage this campaign LiveLighter, which we deliver with the Heart Foundation, and we have a whole range of partners that we also work with across the state. Is anyone familiar with the LiveLighter campaign? Oh, good. It's a relief when a few people have heard of it, but for those who haven't, I'll take you through some of the resources that are available to you. So what I just thought we would do today is I'll just give you an overview of how LiveLighter works, some of the challenges and learnings that we've had through the campaign of what people experience when they're trying to manage their weight, resources available through the campaign. I'll take you through some of the evaluation quite briefly, but just gives you an idea of where we're up to, and just let you know about some of the workshops that health professionals can access. So the way that the LiveLighter campaign works is that we primarily use mass media, so radio, TV, cinema advertising, to reach people where they are. So ideally people are getting their health information from health professionals, but there's a large segment of the population that are unlikely to walk into a clinic and ask for help. So we think that with that mass media advertising, we can help them whatever they're doing in their usual life. And we use what's called a push-pull approach. So we do some fairly heavy, hard-hitting messages that go to the home. So one of the key campaign messages is that visceral fat, or we call it toxic fat, is a risk factor for chronic disease. And the way that you can tell if you have it is we use the word grabbable gut. So if you've got a grabbable gut. And we think it's the first time the word toxic fat has been used in this type of messaging, but it's probably more an accessible word than visceral fat, which doesn't mean a lot to the general population. So that's, I guess, the push side of things, and the pull side is the website where most of the tools and resources are, and that's all really practical, positive information that gives people the skills and the tools that they need to make a healthy change. And what we've learned from the campaign so far, and I guess a lot of other work that's gone on over the years, is that it's still a big challenge for people to shift from what they're doing now to make a healthier choice. And this is really what's happening in Australia at the moment. So you've got two comparative graphs here. So the blue one's the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, which is the main food-based recommendations for Australia, of how much of each type of food group Australians should eat each day. And the red one's what we're having at the moment. You can see for vegetables, we're getting about half the amount that we should be having. Fruit, we're only doing slightly better. We're not too bad on grains and cereals, meat and protein foods, and dairy. But here's the big problem, and this is probably a significant factor in why there's so many people above a healthy weight. We get more than a third of the energy that we eat in a day from discretionary food. So that's unhealthy food, soft drink, and alcohol. So we're obviously over-consuming there. Oops. And what we think is happening is that as a professional body, as health professionals, we're able to give people the knowledge and skills through the work that we do to help them understand what they should be eating. But when they go out, the environment that they're working in or living in is stacked against them. So it's very difficult to make a healthy choice, even though they know about the risk factors. And that's just an example of Melbourne. Pictures I've taken over time is advertising everywhere. You've got the first thing you see in the supermarket is chocolate, and the last thing you see is chips on special. Upsizing's really popular, and cheap soft drinks in the petrol station. So what we want to do is not only scale up the individual, but over time shift the environment as well. So I guess LiveLighter works with health professionals so that we're all empowered as a group to be able to help people the best that we can, and at the same time work on some of those policy initiatives and things that change the landscape. Like Christine mentioned, providing healthy lunches at work and things would be a good example of that, so that people are better able to make a healthy choice. And Dr. Seem Malhotra is a cardiologist from the UK. He recently visited Australia, and I think he had a lot of really helpful things to say to us. So he's a clinician, but he's very interested in public health. And one thing he said was, it makes it difficult for people to exercise personal responsibility, because the food industry know that people will buy products based on the way they're marketed and promoted and not on the nutritional value. So there's a lot of confusion. People sort of know what a healthy diet is, but the packets of food tell them something else, and you sort of got to balance this up. We also found that in a survey that we did in 2015, so we surveyed 1,000 younger adults, so under 50s in Victoria, and we found that 30% of those people had looked for diet information in the last 3 months. So it's quite a significant portion of people that want this information. Only 1 in 3 of those people were satisfied with the information that they found. And at any one time, 14% of Victorians are on a diet, and 65%, so most of them are doing it on their own, so they're not seeking professional advice, or they may not be doing it with a family member or a friend. Cost is also something that regularly comes up as a barrier to making healthy choices. So we know particularly the price of fruit and vegetables has been rising. So on the right-hand graph, you can see it shows you from 2010 to 2014 the consumer price index change down the bottom, and then it compares the different types of food groups to that and how much they've gone up. So discretionary foods, oils and fats and meats have gone down, while fruit and vegetables and grains have gone up more than CPI, so it's pinching people's pockets. However, it's a little bit of a myth that healthy eating is more expensive than unhealthy eating. There's a lot of work that we can do to help people choose healthier foods on a budget. And it's costing our health system dearly. So this is the Australian statistics for the cost of obesity. So we know that in a year, there's around $4.8 billion worth of healthcare costs direct to the Commonwealth and state health systems due to sorry, it's 3.8 in direct costs, so the healthcare system, and then an additional 4.8 that go to businesses and individuals for the individual out-of-pocket costs of medications and other things, and either being at work when you're sick or not being at work on sick leave. Did anyone see this report released about a month ago called Tipping the Scales? Yeah, this is a really exciting piece of work that's happened. It's 34 bodies, state and national bodies, have got together and they've put a list of 8 asks that they would like the federal government to do in the area of obesity policy. It's the first time that we've had consensus from this many groups about what should be done, and that's fantastic because now when we're asking governments to do things, everyone's on the same page, and hopefully it makes it easier for the ministers to be able to implement some of these things. But evidence from Australia and overseas says that these things would work. So the first one is that they would like to see a restriction on junk food marketing to children, particularly on TV, but we know that there's other spaces where it's becoming really challenging as well, online in particular. So it's a bit hard to read the order, but we've got sustainable campaigns, so like LiveLighter or other ones where it's regularly, it's got regular funding and people are able to see that quite visibly. Targets for reformulation, so let's say by 2025, all manufacturers would have had to reduce sugar, fat and salt in their products so people can buy healthier options. Just trying to remember the other ones.
Did it say anything about the sugar tax?
Yes, that was the big headline actually. It sort of got, the media always wanted to talk about the tax, but there is 8 asks and tax is one of them. So to put a 20% levy on sugar sweetened beverages to partly to help people to cut back and also to encourage manufacturers to be innovative in other kinds of drinks that aren't sugary as well. So a little bit about LiveLighter. If you head to the LiveLighter website, this is what you'd see. This is the homepage. And we encourage users of the LiveLighter campaign to sign up they can get a personal login, so they can sign up with their personal details, and then the programs are specific for their needs. And along the top is the main areas where the resources are found, and there's a specific section for health professionals with professional development and resources for practice there as well. So when someone signs up to the LiveLighter webpage, they get their own meal plans, and they can select from 3 different ones that are tailored to their specific needs. So they need to put in their height, weight, gender and age, and then it calculates based on that how much food they need and gives them targets for physical activity. The first one's called the 3-2-1 meal plan. We like that one the best. That's the most comprehensive plan, and it gives a lot of flexibility. So if you're speaking with clients, this would be a good one to recommend. So the way that this plan works is it gives suggestions for breakfast, lunch and snacks, but they're not food specific. So it sort of tells you, like to say to have 30 to 60 grams of breakfast cereal depending on your size, and then it's up to the person with a few guidelines to choose one they're not. So they're not stuck with a specific one every time. And then it tells you examples of things you could put in a salad or on a sandwich for lunch. And it gives you a dinner recipe. And those recipes are really, they can be tailored to the person's own needs. So if there's 2 people in the house, the recipes are for 2 people. If there's 6, you buy for 6 people. And it gives you a shopping list for the week as well. So that's a really good option. The 12-week one is for people who like a really prescribed approach. People come in and say, just tell me what to eat. I don't want to know all this education, I just want to know what to eat. And so that would be the one for them. So it tells you all the meals and snacks for 12 weeks, and it's quite specific on types of exercises to do each day as well. And the family meal plans are dinner plans, and they're all foods that can be prepared from start to finish in less than 30 minutes, and we've tested them with kids as well, so we think that they're likely to be acceptable to little mouths, and they're feed 4 to 5 people generally.
And are there plans for like people that might have dietary?
Yeah, so all the family meal plans are set, but the other 2 you can just click. There's vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free and dairy-free, and you can just switch between those recipes. So this is an example of what someone would get with the 3-2-1. So this would be their couple of dinners that they would see. So it says where it says swap meal on the recipe. That's where you can swap it out for a vegetarian or other needs. You get the shopping list for the week. And the other thing, there's more information on special dietary requirements. So for people who are cutting out whole food groups for whatever reason, they might just need to be aware of some of the nutrients that they're at risk of. So if you're not eating meat, where to get iron from, for example. So that's information is there. And the Ask Us button you can refer people to use as well. So we have dietitians on the team that can, we usually do it online because we think people who've come to a website want online advice. So by email, they can give them more specific advice or help them through their meal plan as well. So that's open to be used. For people who just want some tips but don't want a full meal plan, we've got a whole lot of recipes, and they're all been dietitian designed and aligned with the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating. And they're also great content. If you do newsletters or anything like that, you're welcome to use any of these recipes.
Ooh, it's really yummy, it does.
Good. Yeah, we worked hard on that. And healthy tips. So these are either online information. So if you click on the icon, you can read through this information online, or you can just select PDF, and then you can print the information as a 1-page PDF for people to take home. And they're quite specific areas. So once you've worked with someone on what area that they would like to address for the next little while, you can give them information specific to that. So it might be cut back on sugar. It gives you tips on how to do that quite specifically. And I think there's about 30 of these. So that's just the first 10 there. So that's what it looks like if you printed them off. So. And we have hard copy resources as well. I don't know if anyone orders those already, but I've got some order forms today if anyone would like to. Otherwise, you can just order resources online just through the health professionals section of the website. So we've got, this is an example of, this is a wallet card. It just shows people how to read labels in the supermarket, so give them an idea of what to look for. And quite often what I do is just give this card to them, and they've got the web address on there, and then they can go home and do the meal plan setup and everything themselves as well, rather than taking stacks of paper home. But we've got posters for practice and other pamphlets, tape measure if you want to do waist circumference, and BMI calculator as well. So that's a bit about the resources that are available, and I just thought I'd just take you through some of the mass media results as well from the campaign. So just a little refresher on how social marketing works. The goal of social marketing is to change risky behaviours. So we want people to stop doing things that harm their health in this case, and in relation to LiveLighter, that would be to change what they're eating and move more. And what we need to do before we see any of those behaviours shift, we need to see a shift in perceptions and attitudes. So if people don't think that unhealthy diet is a risk factor for their personal health, there's no reason for them to change. And so we always monitor whether there's any shift in that before we're going to see any change in behaviour. And the other things that a campaign should do is affect the environment that people are living in. So the discussion in the media and between individuals and people with their talking to their doctors or nurses should eventually lead to a change in expectation of what people want, and therefore policy change. So we've seen, I think over the last probably not even 5 years, a huge shift in how people think about added sugar in their diet. And now, for example, around the tax for sugary drinks, there's a huge increase in public acceptability of that. I mean, most people are quite supportive of that, and maybe not even, I don't think it was 5 years ago, there was very few people who were supportive of seeing an additional levy on sugary drinks. And then the other thing that should happen is a campaign discussion should change social norms. So I mentioned with sugar, I think we're starting to see that, but we certainly haven't seen it overall in unhealthy diets. Unhealthy diets are normal, but in the long run, it would be great if it changed so much that healthy diets became the default. So what we saw in Victoria from start to finish was that 31% of adults were drinking at least a litre of sugary drink every week, and by the final week that had dropped to 22%. And in South Australia there was a small but insignificant change. So the difference between the states shows us that campaign had an impact, and it continued to run until mid last year, but we're just looking for funding to run it again, because that would have gone up again in that time, hopefully not back to what it was then, but we know that sustained exposure will really help with that.
Do sugary drinks include alcohol?
No, not for the purpose of our messaging, but it does in terms, so all the premixes and things like that, we do a little bit of side messaging around the energy in alcohol. And the other thing I just wanted to highlight to you is that we run workshops for health professionals, and they've been running for a couple of years now. And the way that we teach what's happening around the environment is that we show that this is some ABS data that shows how people's weight changes over their adult life. And we can see that for both men and women, their weight continues to increase to between 55 and 65 years of age, where it starts to plateau then. So in terms of doing an intervention and helping people with their weight, you can actually really help someone anywhere along that spectrum. So if you've got a 20-year-old that's put on a couple of kilos but they're still in the healthy weight range, that's a great time to give them some messages around how to stop it, because you'll stop them continuing to increase their weight over that time. And likewise, if someone's already later in life and they want to lose some weight, it's still a great time to work with them as well. What's happening in practice is we know that this is a really promising stat. This used to be a lot lower, but this year when we surveyed people, 31% of Australians aged under 50 had recalled being advised by their doctor to lose weight. So that's great. This is becoming more common in practice, and health professionals are talking about it. But obviously 31% and 63% of people would benefit from some weight loss. So there's more to do there. And health professionals are in a really good position to talk to people about their weight management. So we asked people how comfortable they were to talk to a doctor or a health professional about their own weight, and overwhelmingly, well above 70%, 77% said that they were comfortable with that. So it's a good place to be discussing that. Equally, when we asked people about whether they were comfortable discussing their children's weight with a health professional, there was high support for that too. So we run two types of training for health professionals. So we have a face-to-face intensive training course that runs for 8 hours, and we delivered that twice this year. It was new, and we just wanted to gauge the interest in it, but both courses sold out. So we're going to deliver 4 courses in Melbourne next year, and looking for opportunities in regional Victoria to run that as well. And the other thing that we offer is an online 2-hour training module, which is free to complete. So that's hosted by Think GP, and it's open to all health professionals and students. So 350 people have completed it so far this year, and it's live until at least June next year, and then we'll just work out whether to extend that further, but that's available to use. The way that we talk about how to engage in the conversation is that we use the behaviour change theory model, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, but just really engaging with the client, finding out where they're up to, and importantly, if they're pre-contemplative, they have no intention of changing their behaviour and what they're eating or how much they're moving, that's still a good time to start that conversation, because they may if they have a conversation with every health professional that they're seeing, eventually they'll be ready when someone brings it up. So really asking your client, how do you feel, and going from wherever they're up to. And we also use the 5 A's framework to teach how to have the conversation, and then provide advice, assistance, and arranging either follow-up or referral on as well. And it's all based on the clinical practice guidelines for management of overweight and obesity. Is everyone familiar with them? Yeah. So I think it's a huge document. It's about 230 pages, but I recommend everyone have it saved somewhere on their desktop or something, because it's really useful just to, when you've got those clients that you're sort of not sure what to do next with them, you're sort of given them the dietary advice, they haven't done a lot, do I go over that again, or do I refer them on to a next stage? It's quite helpful in that decision-making process. And the other thing that we're encouraging is for when it's not appropriate to do an intervention around weight, or you haven't got a lot of time, to, as a minimum, just ask these 2 questions and help the patient set some goals around that. So, how often do you drink sugary drinks? That's a great one, because you don't really need to do any education. I mean, if you can help people cut back on sugary drinks, they know what to do. We've seen from evidence where people have cut back, they just start drinking water. It's unlikely that they're going to swap their sugary drinks for unhealthy food or anything like that. It's a very clear goal, and people know what to do about that. And it can lead to weight loss as well, or at least stop weight gain. And the other one is how often do you eat vegetables? So 96% of Australian adults don't eat enough vegetables, so pretty much going to be able to help them to do better in that area as well. So this is the section of the website that's for health professionals. This is where you can find out the upcoming dates for training, click through to the online health professional training, and also order resources from here as well. We've also got some links on there to motivational interviewing training. It's not weight specific, but it is really good training that you can use across the board in your work. So that's done by health and wellbeing training consultants who are a partner of ours. So the course details for next year is the next one's on Saturday the 3rd of February, and then following that it's a Thursday in May. So we try to alternate between Saturdays and weekdays, and those are both in Melbourne. But if anyone's in regional Victoria and you think there's an opportunity to partner and bring it to your area, we'd be really interested to explore that. That's all I had.